Hi, everyone. David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at the first Derby prep that's going to take place on Saturday early in the morning over in Dubai. Halfway around the globe, they're running the UAE Derby. This one, a Group 2 event going the mile and 3/16 distance on the dirt. And Mike, this is a race that has produced Kentucky Derby starters in the past, and there are definitely spots reserved for these horses this year. Churchill Downs has changed around the qualification a little bit for these horses. This race is now part of the European/Middle Eastern road to the Kentucky Derby rather than offering points in the general pool of American races. But it still could produce 2 to even 3 starters because the likely favorite in this race, Flood Zone, he already earned 50 Kentucky Derby qualifying points in the Gotham Stakes, so he's not really eligible for that European Middle Eastern road. There are two potential spots that are still available along that road, so we'll see if any other horses that finish on the board want to come to Kentucky.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this race plays out. Obviously outside of Flood Zone, who we'll get to in a few minutes here, the shipper for Brad Cox. The other horses, I thought, all of them, they're so lightly raced, David. I mean, they just all have so much to prove here. It's going to be interesting to see, how it plays out, how good some of these horses turn out to be. And then if they do turn out to be good, whether they decide to ship over.
Yeah, a lot to dive into in this race. It's only a 9-horse field, but Mike, we did videos of this race and the Dubai World Cup. This one took me about twice as long to handicap because not as familiar with these horses. And there are some interesting things to uncover about each of them. We're going to go through each runner in the field. Before we get to the contenders, we'll just briefly discuss the pace scenario, Mike. And it's really tough to evaluate. As you said, these horses are so lightly raced. It's hard to know which ones are going to get ridden aggressively. Flood Zone, though, does seem like a horse that wants to be towards the front end. He's run his 2 best races when he keeps his face clean, is contesting the pace, and he's probably going to have the opportunity to be forward in here.
Yeah, it feels like he's going to be forward for sure. Who is up front with him is a little bit tougher to decipher. We'll see, how some of these horses play. It's certainly the number 5 Galactic Star's shown speed in his races. He's pretty handy too, but he's been showing speed.
We're going to go through this field in post position order, not program number order. So from the rail out, we'll begin with the horse drawn in post 1. That is the number 2 horse, Dawn in the Mood. And he is one of 3 horses coming out of the Hyacinth Stakes, a race on the Japan road to the Kentucky Derby that was won by Luxor Cafe. So we might get a bit of a read on the quality of Luxor Cafe, who did go on to be the top qualifier out of Japan and might be coming to the Kentucky Derby. I think we're still waiting on confirmation for that. Mike, as far as Dawn in the Mood goes, a horse who was 3rd behind Luxor Cafe in that Hyacinth, I thought of the runners coming out of that race, he got one of the better trips up close to what seemed like a slow pace and just kind of stayed on at the end. Watching his races, though, he does seem like a horse that will be just fine with more distance.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I mean, if nothing else, the Hyacinth was a turn back in distance for this horse to a mile. And so stretching back out could actually help him. I'm sort of with you on just the most recent race where, the trip was fine. It seemed like he had every chance to win. And he wasn't as good as either the first or the second finishers in there. He wound up finishing 3rd. The other thing that I noticed about him, which doesn't thrill me, and it doesn't mean that he's not any good, but man, does this horse go off at big prices at every one of his starts.
Yeah, he was a winner at 54-1 2 back. I believe looking up that field, there was a 1 to 10 favorite that was off the board in there. So maybe that opened the door for a big long shot like Dawn in the Mood to win. Post position 2 goes to the number 9 horse, Queen Azteca, the lone filly in this field that's taking on the boys. And Mike, she has had an interesting trajectory to her career. She's an American-bred horse who began her career over in Norway, competed a couple of times in Sweden, then made her way over to the United Arab Emirates for the wintertime. And she stepped up seemingly against tougher competition in Dubai, but has run 3 of the best races of her career over here. And we'll take a look at the most recent of those when she was the winner of the UAE Oaks against her own gender. And at the top of the stretch of this race, Mike, it doesn't look like she's going to get there. There was a horse that sort of broke away on the front end, as you can see, and that horse looks like she is well on her way to victory, but Queen Azteca just keeps grinding away and improbably catches that one as they get to the finish.
Yeah, handled the stretch out in distance here, and just you can see her just staying here, David. Just kind of hoping this horse comes back to her a little bit, but she just stays and stays, and I guess that's a really good thing for her. She will run past this thing inside the stripes here and get the job done. She ran fine in there, I guess. The race 2 starts back, the big win in the Cocoa Beach. They were flying in front of her in that race. And then she made a big run from out of it. To me, I just don't think that she's good enough, David, but the distance is probably a good thing for her.
Yeah, you can compare the times of a couple of those mile and 3/16 races on February 21st. It was the same day they ran the Al-Bastakia over the same distance for the males, and that race went 1 second and 1/5 faster than that UAE Oaks. The number one, breaking from post 3, is Admire Daytona, another one of those horses that's coming out of the Hyacinth Stakes. And he just kind of chased outside, kind of followed Don in the Mood into the race and popped out in the stretch, Mike. Seemed like he had every chance, just couldn't really pick up as the runner-up actually ran right past him to get up for second in there. Admire Daytona ultimately finished 4th in that race. I did like some of his performances prior to that, particularly the race 3 back, where he was in a nose loss to Luxor Cafe and really matched strides with that one all the way to the wire. So he showed his quality there. This is the one of the Japanese, though, where I wonder a little bit about the distance.
I worry about that, too. I did notice the same thing, though. It seems like he kept good company over there, and he was competitive in some of the earlier races before he just, got hammered at the windows and broke his maiden in February. I don't know I don't love his Hyacinth either, David. I would just say it's hard to see what happened at the start, but he didn't break that sharply. I couldn't tell if he got bumped or if he just came out a little bit silly, but he was away to the back of that field, and then he sort of had to improve his position in a pace that wasn't that fast. I still didn't love his performance overall.
Completing that trio of runners from the Hyacinth is the number 3, Dragon, who breaks from post 4 in this race. And Mike, if I was going to make a trip excuse for any of the horses coming out of the Hyacinth, it would be this one. He was a little sluggish early and just seemed like he was reacting very badly to the kickback every step of the way. In the wintertime in Japan, it seems like kickback can be really intense for those horses. It's a dry, sandy surface, and you could just see there's this cloud of dust that's flying back at the closers that are trying to run through it, and Dragon was just not appreciating it at all, but he still did stay on to pass half the field, getting up into 5th there, and just seemed like a horse where the 1-turn mile was way too short for him. He had broken his maiden going a mile and an eighth prior to that, and I thought that was a pretty impressive performance. He was wide early, made a big backstretch move to take the race over, got a challenge from the favorite, turned that one away, and went on to win by 9 lengths. So to me, that points him out as a horse with quality, and now he's getting to stretch back out in distance.
Yeah, another horse who had to turn back for that Hyacinth Stakes, and maybe it just didn't really work for him. I certainly noticed that as well. Yeah, he was off the pace behind a pretty slow tempo last time. I just have a real tough time evaluating that race, David. And if you want to expand on it, you can. I mean, he was at the back, but the runner-up was also at the back. The 4th place finisher who's back in this field was also at the back. So I don't know how much credit I want to give this horse for trying to close when other horses were able to do it a little bit better than he was. But I recognize that he's really lightly raced and that stretching out in distance could really help him.
Yeah, that runner-up did close completely free of the kickback on the outside, whereas this horse is trying to run through it. And even in that impressive maiden victory, this horse reacted very badly to the kickback early in the race. So I think you do want to be cognizant of that at Meydan, a track that can also have some pretty intense kickback for closers. The number 4 is Flood Zone, who will break from post 5 in this race, Mike. And he's really the center of the conversation, especially for American race watchers, since he's already qualified for that Kentucky Derby. And kind of strange to see a horse that already has those 50 Kentucky Derby qualifying points go over to Dubai for his final, in theory, prep for the Kentucky Derby, if that is ultimately the goal for him to come here. Maybe they just think this race is worth $1 million. It's not coming up that tough. Why not try it? He has been privately purchased by Wathnon Racing prior to the Gotham, and that is an operation that operates all over the world. So they did send a couple of horses over to Dubai. Flood Zone is obviously catching a field that looks like it might be vulnerable to a horse of his quality, but he does have to get the distance. And we'll take a look at his victory in the Gotham. I'll let you talk over it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, well, the distance is certainly a main question. I did think it was also very odd that they shipped him over here to run. So we'll see what their plan is after this. I would just say, David, he runs well, and I'm not going to take anything away from his performance. I do think the horse that he duels down there through the stretch, Sand Devil, I think that horse is okay. So this seems like a quality win to me, and it was obviously a big improvement for this horse, first time for Brad Cox. I'm of the position now that I just kind of want to see him do it again here, David, especially as he stretches out, because if I'm being honest, I didn't love him going into the Gotham. I didn't think his first 2 starts were anything to write home about. And, I'm not sure that I think he ran that well in the Gotham, although I do want to give him credit for beating a good horse.
Yeah, and it probably should be noted, Brad Cox is not the kind of trainer that's inclined to run in races like this, so it does feel like an owner decision to go to this race, and those don't always work out as well as having a long-term plan formulated by the trainer. The number 6 is Heart of Honor, who's breaking from post 6 in this race. And Mike, this horse has run well every single time. Started his career in Great Britain, running over the all-weather surface, but transferred to the dirt just fine, as his pedigree would suggest that he should, being by Honor AP out of a Scat Daddy mare. I know he's a British bred, but that pedigree is American through and through. And we'll take a look at his most recent start, which was won by Galactic Star, one of today's rivals. He's the chestnut highlighted there in the yellow cap, but focus also on Heart of Honor, who is the runner that's in behind. He's coming from about fourth right now between horses. And Mike, I'll let you talk about it, but this is a horse that gives himself a little bit of work to do in the stretch of his races, but he does have a pretty big finish on him.
Yeah, he really does finish. And I don't think it was that surprising to see him stretch out effectively in this race. This is the first time they went long with him. He's gaining very quickly here on the winner, Galactic Star. And Galactic Star is getting a little tired at the end of this race too, but this is a pretty big run that this horse put in. And it's not like he had, you know, a totally clean closer's trip in that race. He had to do some altering course, but he ran his prior two races, or prior three races actually, were all really good performances too. Even the lost two starts back, he had to come super wide in that race. He still was getting to a good horse at the end of that race.
Yeah, totally agree. That performance too back in the UAE 2,000 guineas was very impressive, where he was arguably better than the winner, Golden Vekoma. And speaking of Golden Vekoma, he won the Saudi Derby, is not back in this race, but the runner-up from the Saudi Derby is. That is the number 8, Shin Forever, who'll break from post 7. Let's take a look at the stretch run of the Saudi Derby, where Shin Forever was second. He's that horse with the big white face and the Forever Young Silks on the lead. And he tries to break away from this group around the far turn, Mike, and you could see he's really stringing this field out. And I think he pays the price for kind of putting down the gas pedal a little bit early as they come into the long stretch at this racecourse, Abdulaziz, because Golden Vekoma is just staying on to his outside, and that rival will eventually wear him down. But Shin Forever does finish a pretty good second in here. He's just going to have to prove that he can stretch out to the mile and 3/16 distance.
It's the biggest question for me too. I thought he ran really well in this race, even though he can't hold on in here. Listen, he was okay on turf, but his pedigree has a lot of dirt in it, so it wasn't surprising to see him handle the surface switch in this race. I just thought he ran really well, David. We'll see if he can stretch out, because if he can get this far, he's a pretty dangerous horse.
Mike, I don't have a whole lot to say about the number 7, Rafid, who'll break from post 8. He just feels like a big long shot in this race. Does attract American jockey John Velasquez, but he beat a weaker field last time and was just no match for Heart of Honor and Galactic Star the last couple of times he faced those horses.
Yeah, those starts 2 and 3 back sort of suggest that he's just not up to this kind of a level of a race. He needed big class relief to win last time.
And rounding out this field on the outside is the number 5, Galactic Star. He was the winner of that Al-Bastakia, going this mile and 3/16 distance. We took a look at that replay already, where he just barely held off Heart of Honor at the very end. He was only making his 3rd career start in that race. It was his first times trying the 2 turns, Mike, so he's clearly come around fairly quickly. I just thought he got the better trip than Heart of Honor on that occasion and just barely held that one off. So now breaking from the far outside post, I wonder if he's got a tougher trip coming to him, but he does seem like a progressive sort.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I looked at his last race the same way you did. He just got a really nice trip in that race. And ultimately, in my opinion, was lucky to hold on in there. But as you pointed out, he's very lightly raced. He's shown some talent. He could certainly move forward again here.
Let's go to our picks for this race, Mike. And I find it interesting. We both put horses on top that might not love the kickback and are going to have to find a way to work out trips in this race. Heart of Honor, at least, has already gotten some experience with that Meydan kickback and ran really well last time.
Yeah, I'm hoping he gets a little bit more of a clean trip this time. I'll just say that. We're going to see how this pace plays out. But maybe you get Flood Zone. You get maybe a horse like Shin Forever, who's got speed, Galactic Star. Maybe he'll get enough pace to run that.
And Mike, you're completely leaving out Flood Zone here, and I get it. He's going to be a very short price, especially with the American fans betting into these pools, and he still has something to prove going this far, so we'll see if he's able to do it. I put the number 3 Dragon on top. He was the Japanese horse that I wanted out of that highest in stakes, where it just felt like he was not loving the situation, trying to come through between horses on the inside. I think distance really works for this horse, and we'll see if the legendary Japanese jockey Yotaka Take can get him into some more forward position here, because I think he's going to need to have his best chance. 3-4-6-2 for me and 6-5-3-1 for Mike in the Group 2 UAE Derby on Saturday in Dubai. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.